Welcome back, everybody. Episode 162 Chaps, Many Cultures. Happy Friday, everybody. Or if you're watching this on the recording, happy whatever day. And have you ever been in a situation when you acted a certain way or said something your way, and the person that you interacted with completely misunderstood, totally got it wrong, and you recognize what you did and what you said really affected, maybe even negatively affected the person you're interacting with, when what your intention was completely different from the impact it had? Yeah, we've been there too. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, sir.
Brett, it was really not my intention to put you on the spot like this.
No, well, I understand. I understand, but do other people understand?
Do you really understand?
We've been in the green room discussing it. We have context. We have background. I know you, right? No, it's this is a great topic, and often brought up by great colleagues of ours, and I'm going to name her, Kelly McLeod-Chingan, who does this all the time in her workshops, and every time I hear it, it is a reminder for me that it doesn't. To me, I just think it just doesn't matter what my intention is. I think it's pretty black and white, but I'm willing to be challenged on that. I mean,
Well, let's say this. I know this is a tough one because I go through this often, even with people that are not from a different culture, from even people from within my close circles. And I would suspect some of you have similar experiences that you do or say something that a very close person, they don't see your intent, or they are impacted in a way you never wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So in cultural training, we often say, make no assumptions. And if you make one assumption, then that everyone is acting with positive intent. Nobody acts, or very, very few people behave the way they do because they have a negative outcome in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it is upon us, we often say in cross-cultural training, to become good detectives. What might the intention be of that behavior, of these actions that are so uncommon, unfamiliar, uncomfortable to us at first? Or in other words, I don't like how this impacts me. This behavior is not what I would like to see around me. And what could possibly be the positive, well-meaning intention of the person behaving that way? So that puts the onus on the person that is impacted, right? The other, if you flip that coin, you could say, well, wouldn't it be smart for any of us that we interact with other people to, before we act or behave or say something, to consider possible impacts that may be aside from our intended way? It's a tough one. Who is to quote unquote blame, or who should have the obligation to always be aware of the possible impacts our behavior could have? I'm not sure if I have a simple answer to that.
No, I don't either. And I would say that if, well, here's another scenario. Well, you hear all the time that, and especially now where there's a lot of kind of tension in this discussion, that people say, well, you can't offend anybody anymore. You're not allowed to offend anybody anymore. I'm really got to struggle with that comment. I mean, the point is that the people that are saying that are lamenting the fact that they can't say anything offensive. They're not allowed to say anything offensive. And my question is, well, write me a list of the people you want to continue offending. Let's have a discussion with those people. Maybe if you have like the positive intention that you're describing, if you have that intention, then maybe they'll see it. Maybe they'll see your wonderful insights into why you really want to invest your time in making somebody feel like crap.
Right.
And that's my question about that. So
okay, so now we're talking about offending people. All right, good. I hear you.
Well, I think and that's one example. I mean, something you say, if it offends somebody, if it is offensive to their being, like it might be a slur that they're uncomfortable with, something that that really that is something from their past that has triggered a memory of trauma, or which exists in a lot of not just individuals but a lot of collective groups, right?
And whenever people say that, what was the line you said? I can't offend anyone anymore.
Oh my goodness! I'm not. When they're confronted by saying, "Hey, that may have been to you appropriate for your grandfather, but right now it's not." And the answer is, "Oh my God, I can't offend anybody anymore."
Well, when has it ever stopped you in the past? So I'm going to say those people who are saying that with that attitude or that mindset, I doubt that they're going to stop offending the very people they've been offending, and they're just looking for a justification for their offensive behavior, or some allies who would go along with them to have their back because they're afraid to offend others by themselves. Because then that's when the bully is alone in the schoolyard. That's never a good thing for the bully. But aside from the actual, well, that would be almost malintent, or that would come to the party with the intention of offense, right? Or with the intention of being opinionated without considering other points of view. Has it though happened that we come to the party with the best intentions and with open minds, hearts, ears, and eyes to accept other views, and still acting upon our best intentions have an impact that we don't want? Has that?
Yeah,
I know it happened to me, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But yes, because this is a long discussion. I think we could hash this out. And I'm hello, Patricia. It's just a funny discussion. I mean, when people of course the context of the communication is important. If it's a written communication, or is it a verbal communication over a phone where somebody can't see your face, or is it or pick up your stop? The other day, an example with when I was in a car dealership and I was walking around looking at cars, and the person repairing my car couldn't find me. They called my wife by accident because that was a telephone number. So of course, not knowing the frame of mind or the style that my wife communicates in, which is, why are you calling me, right? There is an efficiency. There is an efficiency that we've planned, that we've got somebody representing our family at your organization. Why are you bothering me? And then when the young gentleman came back to me, and he actually said to me, "Oh, well, I called your wife by mistake," and she was quite rude. She was not very pleasant. And I thought, well, I know my wife, she's wonderfully pleasant, but of course, when she's confronted with things that are not efficient and doesn't make sense to her, and that somebody, it comes off, why? Just tell me, what are you doing? What are you calling me for, right? Which is that, so her intent is not to offend, certainly in that case. But of course, without the knowledge of the cultural style of what, like we talked about yesterday, style or substance, then that person, I could see, might take that as, well, I was just actually trying to help. I'm trying to, his intent, is to help too. So there's a disconnect here. There's a disconnect, and they are misunderstandings and that kind of thing. But I would say, and I would, and I would say it publicly. I would say to my wife, just going to understand that he called. He was just trying to help, right? So your intent of just, getting him to do his job seems good to you, but he probably did take it. Midwestern American young fella, he's friendly, he's trying to be helpful.
Midwest nice, right?
And now he's going, what the hell?
Now you shared parts of that story with me earlier, and it also sounded like this young fellow from the car mechanic shop was a bit in his male stereotype of talking down to a female. What do you know about the car? I need to talk to your husband kind of way, right?
He actually did because I was digging into it, and when he actually tried to explain to me, he was trying to justify I'm trying to explain to her, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. Well, you don't have to explain it to her. She understands what it is. She knows what a car is. It's not, she's an intelligent, I said, she's got more brains than me, dude. Maybe you should talk to her about it and explain it to her, because that would actually build your skill set.
So the only saving grace then we have, if I hear you, would be to, when we recognize that we inadvertently had a different, maybe negative impact with our good intentions, that we own up to it, that we recognize it, that we address it, that we acknowledge it and say, oops, I think I may have expressed myself in a way that you didn't like, or that hurt you, or that was inappropriate. So excuse me, so to say, own up, have the vulnerability to accept or to take ownership of the situation, and to say, I'm sorry, I may have misspoken, or I may have expressed myself in a way that offended you, right? Mm-hmm. So let me rephrase it, or how can I make amends, so to say. I think that is one of the core elements, I believe, of peacemaking and reconciliation, is to acknowledge the pain of the victim. And I'm not saying that your wife or the mechanic were victims, but when I use the word victim, I mean those who have been negatively impacted. And there's a scale from having a feeling of having talked to an unpleasant human being on the phone to having experienced pain, suffering, killing, right? I guess that's the bandwidth. Yeah. Maybe there's more. You educate me. But without acknowledging the pain of the victim, whatever our good intentions were, or maybe we may have had good intentions, without acknowledging the pain of the victim, there is no peace. There is no reconciliation. And yes, I'm going to drag this again into the German history. But that's the lesson that I learned personally, right? There's no other lesson I can bring up. So maybe others have other insights around that. I'm sure in Vietnam, Cambodia, or in Rwanda, or in other areas of genocidal activities, that they may have lessons learned from that. But the gift of reconciliation that Germany of today has with Israel and the people of Jewish faith around the world is because, by and large, Germany accepts and acknowledges and does its best to understand the pain of the victims. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying there was positive intent in the way that my country acted back then, but even that, there was even no positive intent, but there's still a heavy impact. And the only way out of that mess, the only way for future generations to be with each other again, is to acknowledge the pain of the victim. Yeah. And when that doesn't happen, then the impact will linger and will grow ulcers, and the wound is not going to heal. That's how I look at it. That's my belief system. Maybe I'm off a bit here, but that's I think the core to reconciliation is acknowledgement of pain.
And I'm certainly not a psychologist, but I think I kind of read about a little bit about this yesterday. in a psychological way, it was even brought up in one thing I read, that it is the height of privilege to actually be then offended to be possibly confronted by the fact that you've offended somebody, right? To say, the push back against it and say, well, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my intent, that, you misunderstood. A lot of apologies are coined in this way, aren't they? Well, I'm sorry if you were offended. Well, I mean, why not just say, you obviously are offended. I have really done something, and how would it? And I think, and we've got some people here on this, like Patricia, Kelly. All these people say, what's wrong with saying, I have obviously, what I have said, what I've done, my actions have impacted you in a negative way. I would love to know, what is the best way? What is a different way that I could have approached that, said that, express my feelings. These are interesting. These are just deeper discussions that I probably don't have the brains to get into. And as Patricia here says, American English expression, I don't give a something, right?
A hoot. I don't give a hoot. I don't give a
hoot. Yeah,
I don't give a penny. Yeah. I don't give a cup of coffee. I don't know.
Right. Do you think it's directness or meanness? Right? Is that, and I'm hope Patricia's not here, but I mean, just to say it, but is that like, if you just say, look, I just don't give a damn, I don't give a hoot, about this, that, or the other thing, and then do certain cultures then say, well, what does that mean? You just don't give a hoot about anybody else but yourself? That is. Which is a very individualistic way of looking at it, whereas somebody from a collectivist side of society, that's it's a tighter society that follows the kind of rules a little bit more, says that just seems a little bit a little bit offensive, right? Maybe that's
we're teaching a communications class this weekend, and there's one of the axioms, one of the core principles of our teaching is the meaning of any communication is the response that you receive. So the meaning or the result of communication is not your intent. The meaning of the communication is the response that you receive. And if the response is, oh, I'm offended, or I'm impacted in this or the other way, this is how whatever you did landed on my end, so I'm going to respond a certain way. That response is the meaning you just created with your communication. So if that's not the response you want, then maybe you have to adjust the way you sense it.
Yeah.
Because if people don't like what you do or say, then maybe that's a feedback for you. It's not failure. You didn't fail in communicating. That's feedback, how your way of being shows up in the world. So if that's not what you would like to show up as, well, change it. I mean, but what are the options? You can continue being as you are and potentially negatively impacting, offending, annoying people, and that will be your outcome. Happy Friday to you. Or you want different results. Well, you just got the feedback. This is what happened. So maybe do something else next time.
I think that's what's frustrating to me when you talk, but when you confronted with somebody who says, I'm just going to say what I feel, say what I mean, and who cares if people are offended. And I go, well, then you're constantly getting this feedback. You're constantly getting this negative feedback, which can't be good for you. You can't make you feel good that everybody is pushing back against you with everything you say. Right. Why not kind of say, learn from it and go, this feedback is important, right? Even the big social media star, Gary Vaynerchuk, says, trolls, haters, he dismisses them out of hand, but he actually listens to what they say.
Yeah.
And that's a funny thing to talk about, right? He says, maybe somewhere in there, somebody's giving you some feedback where you think, well, okay, maybe there's a different way I could have said it, right? I think
this is one of the fallacies of the internet age, so to say. It is often perceived that up until we had this tool, we were subject to some sort of elites who control what the mainstream opinions are, or what can be said and what will be heard, because there were limited distribution channels. Now, everybody and their uncle has a microphone and feels and a camera. Look at us. I'm not your uncle, by the way. So everybody has a mic and a camera and even some lighting, and things they need to be heard. Just because we're saying something doesn't mean that anyone should listen to us. Luckily, we have a handful of people who like what we do, but we're not entitled to an audience. None of you are, right? So that's one of the fallacies, I think, of the internet age, that everybody thinks, well, I have the mission to send something, and therefore I should be heard, and the way I do it is valid because look at me, it's on YouTube. It is, therefore it's legit. And I think that if we were to remind ourselves that every action has a reaction, that's plain simple physics, then we might consider the energy that we send differently. And maybe we're coming back to that. Maybe the pendulum has been swinging enough now, right? So I mean, you could draw a political parallel here. The pendulum swung as far as January 6th, and people felt entitled to their opinion to express it violently on the steps of the United States Parliament building or inside the Parliament building. Yeah, sure, you feel entitled to have that kind of opinion. That was irony, by the way. Maybe the pendulum has swung enough, and we're going to find a new balance. Who knows? But I grew up differently, and I don't want to sound like my old uncle. Oh, back in the old days. But I strongly believe that any communication, if it wants to be successful and efficient, needs to consider all parties involved. And if you're not considering the response as the feedback, then you're going to be out on an island, and everybody is to themselves. So,
yeah. Is that German irony? Is that an irony?
I don't know. I have to ask Patricia about that. I'm not sure. Well, as every time, as always, we appreciate your comments, and thank you for watching today. And yes, Maria Armington, the feedback that I give you is that I like you very much, even though I don't know you, but you called my concept brilliant. So my feedback to you is you're awesome. I'm not sure if that was your intention.
That's right. We are nothing but grateful for everybody who turns up here every day to listen to our bloviating. It is bloviating oftentimes, and and we really are grateful to be able to do this. And again, we certainly have said a lot of things over the last 160 episodes, and had a lot of people on that have expressed their opinion and things like that, and that's something that we value and are very grateful for, but doesn't mean we're always right. And we always want to hear from you. If we have, if there is a better way that we can say things, we want to learn. This is much about learning for us as it is that we hope we can pass on some nuggets of knowledge from our experience.
Nuggets, gold bars of knowledge.
Yeah.
Maria, oops, sorry.
No,
we both clicked on the same thing. So Maria says the meaning destroys relationships. The meaning in quotation marks destroys relationships, burns bridges. There's a power element here. What I say is the only truth, and you should hear it. Yes, I agree with you, Maria. Thank you. And my friend Eric Goodman, man, I haven't seen or heard from you in a while. Discovered the show. Great to have you, Eric. Excellent, excellent. And to all of you, a happy weekend. Yes. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Episode 160. Brett, parting words.
Go out there with the good intent. Go out there with a good intent. Say what you want to say. Listen to the feedback. Value the feedback. Be grateful for the feedback, even when it's negative, because we can all learn from the wonderful people around us. And that's basically it. Have a wonderful weekend, sir.
You do the same. Enjoy your lives. Enjoy a few days off if you can. And we'll see you back on Monday.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.